All right, we're entering the final week of the season, not just the regular season. Have to get used to just saying the season. 49ers will not be heading to the playoffs for the first time since the 2020 season. And a lot has gone wrong for San Francisco this year. We don't have to rehash all of that. We've been talking about it over the course of the past several months. But surprisingly, especially if you had been living under a rock over the course of the past 3 months and you hadn't seen the 49ers season and you're just getting caught up on things right now, it'd be very surprising to know that despite all that's gone wrong and despite the record right now at 6-10, it could be a 6-11 or a 7-10 final record. Despite all that, the rookie class, the 2024 draft class, has actually performed really well. Downright promising for the 49ers entering this 2025 calendar year and then the 2025 season. So we're going to talk about that draft class. This is a discussion that I had in the locker room today. Kyle Juszczyk answered my question about the benefits of this 2024 draft class performing as well as it has. Kyle's been around the NFL for a while, so I think that he is the right person for perspective in that locker room as to how this 2024 rookie class can help the 49ers moving forward into 2025 and beyond.
Of extending that window for all the things that went wrong this year, the 2024 rookie class, that definitely wasn't part of them.
Right.
You've been around the NFL for a while. You've seen rosters retool. How impressive was this class as a whole, and how much optimism does it give you as far as retooling the roster?
Extremely impressive. And it makes me very optimistic in, what we have going forward with young talent. These guys came in and filled in roles that, that we probably weren't expecting them to have to fill in early in the year. But that's one of the things that I take away from a tough season is no matter how bad it was, so much experience is gained, so much knowledge is gained from the guys that were out there and playing. And my optimism always just tries to think, man, let's take that and roll that into next season. Even if it's guys that maybe next year are going to be backups that got their opportunities this year. Okay, great. Now you have a good, solid backup that can come in and play if needed again. So that's how I try to look at these things.
So that's Juszczyk talking about the depth that the 49ers have potentially cultivated for 2025, because the reason that rookies played the amount of snaps, the volume of snaps that they did here in 2024 was because veterans on the team that entered the season as one of the Super Bowl favorites were hurt. By and large, the 49ers saw a lot of players not available, so rookies had to take their spot. You don't see very often this type of large playing time on a contending team. I think that the Ricky Pearsall 2 penalties in Miami are a good illustration as to why. The NFL is extremely complex. You're learning this new playbook. You're learning new rules too. I mean, it's a little bit different in the college game. You're dealing with much more intricacy than you had at the previous level, and rookies are bound to screw up. I mean, we saw the 2 illegal formation penalties for Pearsall in Miami, and they were a good illustration of why a team like the Lions, why a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, somebody that's in high level contention, or the 49ers of previous years, don't like to put rookies in. A, they don't have to, and B, they wouldn't want to, because there could be a great risk playing those types of players, those types of inexperienced players, and having them learn on the job and make mistakes on the job that actually impact the team's playoff chances. But the fact that the 49ers were forced into playing some of these rookies due to their injuries, and playing a lot of these rookies, we're going to go through all the names and all the performances right now. But the fact that they were forced to do that, and then the fact that they did see those mistakes actually happen this season in relatively inconsequential situations. When Ricky Pearsall had his 2 illegal formation penalties, the 49ers had already been eliminated from the playoffs. San Francisco believes that they've taken a big step toward retooling the roster already here in this 2024 season. They believe that at the very least, they're going to have quality, dependable depth in 2025. You talk to a lot of members of the coaching staff, they'll all tell you they think that the biggest jump comes from year 1 to year 2 in the NFL. after you've had a chance to process the shock of year one, the shock of the 17-game season when you're only used to a 12-game season in college, once you've gotten a chance to process the shock of changing game speed because everybody in the NFL was the best or fastest player on their college team, you have a chance to kind of let that marinate. Then you go back and you train for it because your first off season, you were just in the combine, you were in the draft, you didn't know what was coming. Now you've had a chance to evaluate what was coming. You've had a chance to embrace it, and now you could react to it and you could prepare accordingly. That's why that big jump typically happens from year one to year two. Kyle Juszczyk, hearing him talk, he thinks that now players will have that under their belts. They have the rookie season experience, which they typically wouldn't have gotten on a really hard-charging 49ers team, but this year they got it, and he thinks they could at least be good depth pieces for the 49ers come 2025. Anyway, the big success of this rookie class, I think that when you discuss it, you have to start with Ricky Pearsall, because this wasn't always going to be a success story. I mean, this was almost a tragedy on August 31st, right, when Ricky Pearsall was shot in the chest. Consider the fact that less than 4 months after that bullet went through and through into his chest, out underneath his armpit, Ricky Pearsall put up a 100-plus receiving yard game against the Detroit Lions, the team that the 49ers beat in the NFC Championship. I thought that the way that Pearsall showcased his body control, showcased his movement ability, his speed over the course of that game against the Lions, made us understand, if we didn't understand already, why he was a first-round pick. We saw him move really well in college, but we needed to see it translate to an NFL field over more than just a couple plays a game. And he did that consistently over the 8-catch performance. He had an awesome catch at Florida that played on the SportsCenter Top 10 reel over and over again, where he just got crunched after he stretched out for a football and caught it one-handed and still somehow held onto the ball. That showed you the hand-eye coordination, the body control, the focus of Ricky Pearsall in college. But we wanted to see that at the pro level as well. And we saw it at the pro level as well with that catch. Brock Purdy, I thought, threw it slightly high, slightly away from Ricky Pearsall on the deep out toward the sideline, and Pearsall was able to snag that football like a vacuum cleaner. He is now showcasing what the 49ers saw on that college tape in NFL games, and he's showcasing it profusely in that game against the Detroit Lions. So talk about a triumphant story from getting shot in the chest to doing what he did, what Ricky Pearsall did on that field against Detroit on Monday Night Football in front of, 22 million viewers. It was the most watched Monday Night Football game of the year. That sets up beautifully for the 49ers come the 2025 season. And as we go through these draft picks, I will have the 49ers depth chart open because we can see exactly where they're going to fit in the larger scheme of things for San Francisco. So any player that is shaded in green is under contract for next season. In the receiver room, you've got Brandon Ayuk, who's not listed on the 53 because he's on injured reserve, but you've got Ayuk. You've got Jawan Jennings, who is 77 yards short of a 1,000-yard season. You've got Deebo Samuel, and you have Jacob Cowing, Pearsall's fellow rookie, all under contract for next season. So the 49ers can return essentially their entire receiving room, which has a lot of good players in it, for 2025. And when it comes to continuity, when it comes to figuring out, how Pearsall is going to take that second-year jump, I think that's huge because you can be very specific with where you place Pearsall. I don't think you could have been as specific this year because the 49ers had so many injuries. So guys like Jennings, Jennings had to play the F, he had to play the Z, and he had to play the X. He was playing all over the field. Guys like Ricky Pearsall really had to be ready for all of the positions. You saw his first game against the Kansas City Chiefs was the one where Deebo Samuel was unable to play due to pneumonia, and 49ers lost Brandon Ayuk to the ACL. It was an extremely challenging situation for Pearsall. On paper, especially once the 49ers return Brandon Ayuk, which should happen at some point next year, he's already shooting hoops in the locker room, jump shots in the locker room this week. Brandon Ayuk was on the surgically repaired knee. So he should be back at some point next season, and that should allow the 49ers to have a very good landing spot for Ricky Pearsall in year two. So that is potential future success on the tail of really good success as a rookie this season for Ricky Pearsall. Then there is Pearsall's fellow Floridian, as at least in terms of college. I know Pearsall's in Arizona. And, Ricky Pearsall's mom is going to have 55 relatives at the game on Sunday. Ricky today was joking that he didn't even know that he had 55 relatives on his mom's side of the family. He said he's going to have to be introducing himself to people at this game on Sunday. But anyway, he's from Arizona, went to ASU, then he transferred over to Florida. Now we have Renardo Green, who went to Florida State, played against Ricky Pearsall in college. He was the 49ers second-round pick, and he started for most of this season. And I think that what the 49ers got from Renardo this year, considering how bad some of the cornerback play for the 49ers has been over the course of the past, I'm not just talking the Shanahan era. We can go back before that. But the 49ers have been a team that has dealt with some quarterback travesties. And Renardo Green was ready to play from snap one as a starter. Remember that game against Seattle? It was a Thursday night game where he just blanketed DK Metcalf and then had what I thought was the game-sealing interception, ran the route for DK over the middle of the field. That showed you, how precocious somebody like Renardo Green is, the way that he's reading route combinations. In college, he shut down Malik Neighbors. He shut down Brian Thomas Jr. Those are two LSU receivers. And guess who else he shut down? Pearsall, when they played against Florida. So the biggest name first-round receivers that Renardo Green played in college at Florida State, he handled. And I thought that this year, never once did Renardo Green get roasted to the point where like this guy doesn't belong on the field. And that happens with a lot of veteran cornerbacks. So Renardo Green was ready to play as a rookie. And if the true jump happens from year 1 to year 2 in this league, and that's what the 49ers coaching staff has really been talking about, that's the philosophy, then I think that we can expect Renardo Green to be in a really solid position for the 49ers next year. Look at the defensive backfield for San Francisco down here. There is not a whole lot of green there. That means that they don't have a lot of players under contract for next season. Actually, the lowest percentage out of any position group is under contract for 2025. So Ward, Charvarius is a free agent. Deommodore Lenoir is obviously under contract for the 49ers next season, so he forms one of the core spots for San Francisco. If they don't re-sign Ward, then it's very possible that Lenoir moves outside full-time. Then again, you might need a nickel back, but Renardo Green has been cross-trained. Maybe he can give the 49ers some nickel reps. They did shuffle him inside and out as a rookie, which I think is tremendously impressive. I mean, there's a whole heck of a lot of opportunity here. And the point is that Renardo Green and Deommodore Lenoir are the 49ers' two foundational pieces at corner. The fact that you found a foundational piece at corner through that draft, and you already know that you have after one season, that is a big, big arrow up for the 49ers. So Pearsall, Renardo Green, they're happy with both of these guys entering the offseason. Who's next? The big guy, Dominick Puni. Today, Chris Foerster, the 49ers offensive line coach, was asked if Dominick Puni was going to move to tackle or center, or is he going to stay at guard? Sounds like he's staying at guard. So the 49ers needed to improve the right side of the offensive line. Dominick Puni immediately did that. Took over for Spencer Burford, started at right guard. Up until a couple weeks ago, I haven't checked the ratings in a while, but up until a couple weeks ago, Dominick Puni was the third highest graded guard in all of football. So don't say that the 49ers haven't invested in the offensive line. They have. I think they still need to invest more, but what a good investment that they made in Dominick Puni, because I think he helped Colton McKivitz improve. I think he obviously made that right guard position a plus position for the 49ers a year after it had been one of the worst positions in the entire league for San Francisco. And I think that it's definitely something to build on for the 49ers, who now they've got to figure out left guard. Aaron Banks is a pending free agent, and I think that they could really use an upgrade at center. So Puni's going to be at that right guard position for years to come. If the 49ers have their way, they are extremely, extremely excited about that pick. Malik Mustapha was their first fourth-round pick. I don't know if you heard Amon-Ra St. Brown, the really good receiver of the Detroit Lions, on his podcast. He was talking to Deebo Samuel, who was a guest on St. Brown's podcast. Amon-Ra was like, who's number 6 on your team? He was talking to Deebo Samuel. It's like number 6 was hitting harder and flying in faster than any safety at Amon-Ra St. Brown had faced all season. That is high praise from a really good wideout. And if you talk to anybody who has coached Malik Mustapha, who has played against him, what they'll tell you is that this guy does not break stride before he hits you. Most players, I think most human beings, because we have reflexes that try to protect us, if we're running full speed at something and we're about to hit something, we will break stride. We're not going to hold the same exact stride running through a wall. You break stride a little bit just to slow down a little bit in those situations. And Malik Mustapha, watch his tape and then listen to what Deebo Samuel says about him. Listen to what Nick Sorensen, any 49ers defensive mind, says about him. He doesn't break stride. He's extremely unique in that he will run through ball carriers, and opposing ball carriers notice. And that's why he's lighting up tape. That's why he gets from point A to point B so quickly, because he doesn't break stride. That part of his brain, maybe it's the amygdala, whatever is supposed to generate some kind of fear and tell you to slow down. It's not firing off for Malik Mustapha, and he decides to just fearlessly go and take people out. And I think especially as a rookie, to have that courageousness to come across the middle of the field to crash the run game, that's how you could start to see a player who is different than other guys. And I think that's what was at the core of Amon-Ra St. Brown's compliments toward Malik Mustapha the other day. So we're already through 4 of these picks, and I think if each one's a home run, that's back-to-back home runs for the 49ers. It's a grand slam at the top of the draft. Then there's Isaac Guerendo, who's their second, 4th round pick, who I think has looked really, really good in relatively limited time this year, especially as a receiver coming out of the backfield, which is really necessary in the 49ers system. With Guerendo, he has this history of hamstring injuries. He's going to have to learn how to stay healthy. And by that, I mean, yes, there's going to be some luck to this, but you hear veterans talk about this all the time as a key for rookies. It's about stepping up in the offseason, doing things in a way that you maximizes your chances of staying healthy. Finding the right weight regimen, finding the right nutritional regimen, even a sleep regimen is really important to consistently be available throughout the course of the season. That's something that dogged Guerendo through college, something that obviously has popped up for him over this season. He's going to have reinforcements around him next year. You expect to have a healthy Christian McCaffrey if you're the 49ers next year. And that would help because Isaac Guerendo won't have to have a full snap load. But if he can do that, if he can be available for the 49ers with the speedy skill set that he showed this year, the versatile skill set that he showed this year, he immediately can be running back number 2 for this team. We'll see if they retain Jordan Mason, who is a restricted free agent coming up. But I think that Isaac Guerendo is the more versatile player than Jordan Mason. And that is something that the 49ers really need to make this system sing. Then there's Jacob Cowing. Good year as a punt returner for the 49ers. I think he only muffed 1. That was against Tampa Bay this year, and the 49ers were able to win that game. So he's becoming a more and more reliable presence for San Francisco at that position. And if the year 1 to year 2 jump is a thing, then maybe Jacob Cowing can crack into that receiving rotation with greater regularity next year. The final 2 49ers draft picks were Jarrett Kingston and Tatum Bethune. They didn't pick up Kingston, who hasn't played this year. I think Kingston went to, was it Carolina that he went to? They weren't able to keep him. They waived him at roster cutdowns. He was an offensive lineman. Actually looked really good over the course of the preseason, but they weren't able to keep Kingston. He is no longer on the roster, but he didn't play elsewhere this season, so it's hard to really evaluate how he did. And Tatum Bethune, who was on the injury list there for a while for the 49ers, hard-hitting linebacker from Florida State, special teams guy, activated again for the end of the year. We saw Tatum Bethune against the Detroit Lions. So the story on him is not going to be fully written until later in his career. But Bethune was their 7th round pick, and the fact that he's still hanging around the building, that's a good thing for a 7th round pick. Can't expect everybody to be Brock Purdy, pick number 262, turning into an all-pro type of player. But Bethune, maybe with the linebacker attrition that the 49ers are going to see, Dre Greenlaw not under contract for next season. We'll see what happens there. They're always looking for more bodies at that position, because outside of Fred Warner, there were struggles in 2024. Maybe Bethune will have that year to chance. I'm going to get into the undrafted free agents. Evan Anderson at the top of that list when we discuss this offseason a little bit more. But I wanted to talk about that 2024 draft class, which for the 49ers, that's a remarkable hit rate already. This is the biggest contribution rate of a rookie class under Shanahan and Lynch. They needed it this year to stay afloat. They unfortunately saw bad breaks elsewhere, but the 49ers struggling this season was not because of the struggles of the draft class. That draft class was really good. And there are two things that will help this team retool quickly. It is A, they've got their quarterback in place in Brock Purdy. They're going to re-sign him this offseason. He's a really good QB, and that's what you need at the most important position. And B, that young talent they pumped in 2024 through this draft class, they're going to take that year 2 jump after a big year 1 of contributions. If they can stack another solid class in 2025, the 49ers will be well on their way toward a retool. All right, that's it. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.